Xbox has done it again, and 2025 delivered a massive lineup of games to our Xbox Game Pass subscriptions. From blockbuster AAA first-party releases to some hidden indie gems, the library is just bursting at the seams these days with something for every kind of gamer. It is a blessing and of course a curse, as we don't even know how to keep up with the brand new additions, but today you're in luck, as I will be counting down the 30 best Xbox Game Pass games that were released in 2025. With that, my name is Fletcher, and this is Xbox Nation. Make sure to subscribe for Xbox content on a daily basis, and let's dive right into it. If you cast your mind all the way back to the start of 2025, we saw Rebellion take on a brand new venture with a brand new IP called Atomfall. Since that release, we have seen some pretty great updates and some pretty awesome DLC as well, and overall this new foray for the team has been incredibly well received by many out there. This one sees you waking up in the quarantine zone of the Windscale nuclear disaster and has you surviving by any means necessary. Of course, you will engage in all sorts of things like any survival game out there. That means stuff like crafting, exploring the world, or just meeting some very peculiar characters. I will say that this game is nowhere near polished in every single aspect, and it does have some shortcomings. However, this game has a way of telling a story and providing you with so much lore in this world that is downright an incredible experience. It is one that I highly recommend, even though it can be slightly controversial. Hollow Knight Silksong was easily one of the largest indie games, or should I even say game releases, of the entire year, and the fact we got this as a day one title onto Xbox Game Pass, it's utterly staggering. Of course, this one was a brand new adventure, but now pits us as Hornet as we explore the world of Farloom. With it being a brand new entry, we have way more abilities, over 500 enemies to tackle, and a new gorgeous world still breathing with so much love from Team Cherry. Personally, I really did enjoy Silksong, but at the same time, it really is a frustrating experience. Some parts of the game feel pretty unfair and time consuming, but is one that rewards you for trying over and over again until you master it. The world building really is astonishing, which isn't really surprising given how incredible the first game was, but I only suggest this game if you're a Souls-like fan or know that it's going to be a tough experience right out the gate. Revisiting Oblivion all of these years later genuinely still feels unreal, especially remembering that this remaster arrived as a surprise release back in April. Stepping back into Cyrodiil feels less like replaying an old game and more like returning to a place that's been carefully restored. The visual upgrades are immediately noticeable here, with improved lighting and textures bringing that world to life, yet the game still retains that unmistakable charm from 2006, bugs and all. Even the odd quirks and strange bugs do remain, and honestly that just only adds to the nostalgia elements. What really impressed me the most though was just how the gameplay has been modernised without stripping away at its identity. Whether it's your first visit or your 10th here, Oblivion Remastered is a standout RPG experience, and it's a shame it's got overshadowed by so many within this space this year. You are probably well aware that I'm easily going to include the Game of the Year edition to this brand new list, and Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was one game that completely caught me off guard, but in the very best way possible. I was actually lucky enough to spend my time with it early, as I did have access to a review key prior to its launch, which I'm incredibly grateful for, and it's honestly left such a lasting impression to me almost immediately. If you're unaware of this one, the premise alone is pretty haunting, with the paintress annually condemning people to disappear through a ritual known as the Gommage. You will join the expeditioners, and they're a group willing to challenge fate itself to prevent humanity's extinction. Everything here feels incredibly deliberate, from the striking art direction to the emotional performances, and still that insane powerful soundtrack which I'm playing on repeat even on YouTube Music to this day. I've never seen a game with characters written with so much care, and it easily makes it one of the best RPGs that I've probably played in the past decade. It's such a shame to see such an AI conversation going on at the moment about the game, and honestly having one of the awards currently stripped away from this incredibly talented French development team, and honestly I would be shocked if we saw more awards being stripped away, because this game really deserves every single award it gets. Even though it didn't release this year, Hogwarts Legacy really did earn a place on this list without any question. It's one game that I truly did adore in its launch, and the fact that it came to Game Pass towards the latter part of this year is absolutely fantastic. This one though is set long before the events of the Harry Potter films, and the game really delivered on the fantasy of living as a student at Hogwarts. You do everything in this one, from attending your own classes, learning different spells, or just exploring hidden passageways and caring for your magical creatures. The world here feels incredibly rich, thoughtfully designed, and it's honestly so immaculately done, I'm really surprised. What stood out to me the most was just how authentic everything feels as well, as if the castle and its surrounding areas were lifted straight from the films or the books. The sense of discovery never really fades with this one, whether you're wandering the castle halls or venturing beyond them. However, it does have a few Ubisoft elements when it comes to the exploration, which was my only gripe with this one. It is a really confident and well-crafted RPG that really exceeded many expectations of fans out there, and I know it was majorly overshadowed as a Game Pass drop due to those horrific price increases. releases. Still, if you aren't aware, it is available right now, and I heavily recommend you dive into it as soon as possible. For me, Ninja Gaiden 4 was one of the biggest curveballs of the entire year, especially with its shift in focus away from Ryu Hayabusa. This time, no players will step into the role of Yakumo, a younger ninja that's navigating a newly imagined Tokyo that really did blend ancient tradition with futuristic elements. Surprisingly, this one was developed with a collaboration between Platinum Games, Team Ninja and Xbox, and the ambition here was clear, although is definitely a Platinum Games game through and through. Combat was easily the star of the show, delivering some of the most intense, precise and stylish action gameplay that I've experienced in years. However, I still believe that they should have focused a little bit more on Ryu, which was certainly a big gripe for me. Honestly though, everything else from every encounter really did focus on rewards and mastery, and it's exactly what the series has done for many years now. As you may be aware, the story isn't particularly memorable, but that's never really been the core appeal of Ninja Gaiden, but the moment-to-moment gameplay more than carries the experience, and it's well worth diving into. South of Midnight is one of the most visually and thematically unique titles currently available on your Xbox Game Pass subscription. This one was set in a surreal interpretation of the American Deep South, and the game leans heavily into Southern Gothic folklore and storytelling. You will be playing as Hazel, a young woman drawn into a supernatural journey where repairing broken connections is just as important as fighting the twisted creatures. The art style immediately sets it apart from any game out there, blending painterly visuals with a really cool stop-motion inspired presentation that feels unlike anything else on this list today. What truly stayed with me through and through though was the narrative, as it does explore themes of grief, identity and legacy, and it handles so much care and maturity. The soundtrack also deserves a special praise as well, perfectly complementing the tone of this entire world, and that musical track, especially in boss fights, is absolutely incredible. If you're even slightly curious, this is a game worth experiencing, and don't let people put you off on this one because it definitely deserves some time and attention. I really just want to say off the bat though, how bloody impressed I've been by 11-bit studios this year, as their release cadence has been nothing short of pretty outstanding. The alters really did change how I think about my own games, and the unique aspects that it brought to the table have firmly stood in my mind for so bloody long now. This one though sees you taking control of Jan Dolsky as he crash lands into an unknown planet, and it's your job to seek out what actually happened and basically escape. The unique mechanics at hand are that you can clone yourself to make what are called alters, and these are basically past or future versions of yourself depending on differing life choices. It really brings such a unique structure to a survival game that I've never played before, and you need to play this one right now as it will blow your mind. The release of Grounded 2 went down incredibly well amongst many fans of this series, and even though it's still within its early access period, it's a really good game to dive into. The main thing is that it's exactly what it says on the tin. The game is just that, the sequel to Grounded, and if you like Grounded, you'll definitely like this one. You will see a lot of returning elements here, such as your day and night cycles, survival elements such as base building and eating and drinking, crafting tools and bugs, and of course dealing with the bugs in general. There isn't much to say about this one, as it's pretty self-explanatory to be honest. For me, the biggest new addition which I absolutely loved was the addition of buggies, as traversal was always a bit of a letdown within Grounded 1. Still, it's a great game, the updates are coming quick and fast, and now is a good time to jump in even though it's still in its early access phase. There's a reason Ninja Gaiden has earned a reputation for being brutally difficult, and Ninja Gaiden 2 Black proved exactly why. This wasn't a game that you'll breeze through, as it really demands precision, patience and lightning fast reactions. The combat arsenal that Ryu has at his disposal is massive, and it kind of lets you chain together fluid combos and unleash some devastating finishes. The enemies will hit hard and the bosses are downright vicious, but that's also what makes every victory feel incredible. The updated Black Edition smoothed out some of the rougher edges while keeping the intensity intact, and if you're the type of player who thrives on high skill ceilings and loves mastering tough as nails action games, this is one of the finest challenges on Xbox Game Pass. I was still surprised it was a shadow drop earlier in January, but it was a bloody good one at that. Obsidian absolutely cooked this year, and The Outer Worlds 2 was yet another fantastic RPG that they can add to their repertoire. As a massive Fallout fan who considers New Vegas one of their all-time favourite games, this genuinely feels like a spiritual successor, and I was surprised as I never really expected it to be that bloody good. It is a real natural evolution of the first game though, with smoother combat, more satisfying abilities, and just better mission flow overall. Exploration does feel quite meaningful as well, and the choices you make often carry some real weight about them. As someone who loves Fallout style design, the familiar blend of humour, player agency and RPG depth hits pretty perfectly. I did have a chance to actually review the game, but I couldn't get that video out in time due to my illness at the time, which bloody sucks, but I will say I gave this game a solid 8.5 out of 10. It's just such a good sequel, and it's well worth diving into on Game Pass, especially with the DLC content coming late next year. There is something so blimmin' therapeutic about PowerWash Simulator, but PowerWash Simulator 2 just nailed that element even more, and it's just way better than the first game in ways that I really never expected. Instead of giving you just more objects to blast clean, it becomes this sort of immersive escape room where each job feels like a mini story, and the additions they added were so bloody welcome. One moment you might be restoring a filthy old landmark, and the next you're working through bizarre, almost puzzle-like grind patterns in these sort of stage levels. There was also a brand new edition of those stage levels though, where essentially you would clean like an outer shell of say a toilet, and once you clean that, it would then unlock the inside, so you would have to clean that, so on and so forth. It was such a great addition that made the game so much more rewarding in its elements, and the fact they added so many more tools and upgrades to your gear was absolutely perfectly nailed. I actually had a chance to preview it before it even came out, and it was great, and even now on the full release, it's one game that I highly recommend. It's one that's great as well if you want to zone out and listen to your favourite podcast or wind down after a hard day at work. If you somehow thought Doom couldn't get any more intense after Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, then Doom the Dark Ages really proved everyone wrong when it launched earlier this year. Imagine this series' trademark speed and gore but transplanted into a medieval hellscape, with a Doomslayer now clad in armour and wielding weapons that are torn from a blacksmith's nightmare. That mix of ranged firepower and brutal melee combat feels savage, like every swing and shot shakes the battlefield. Unlike the sort of sleek sci-fi elements of Doom Eternal, this one really embraced grit and weight, turning battles into chaotic medieval war zones where your Doomslayer feels like an utter tank. I know many didn't appreciate the turn-down movement velocity compared to the likes of Eternal, but to me this really nailed why I love Doom, and I just cannot wait for the DLC packs to come in early 2026. Wuchang Fallen Feathers was a game that I really did struggle to get into at first, but a few hours in and my mind completely shifted. This is an action RPG that was rooted in Chinese folklore, with an atmosphere just dripping in mystery and dread. The combat is very deliberate and punishing, as you kind of expect from a Souls-like, and it of course demands your precision and timing. The enemy designs in this one are wild as well, and I think the devs also nailed the combat. It does take some getting used to compared to others within the genre, and of course you have to balance what they call the feathering effects, but it seemingly works really well and stands out amongst that crowded crowd of Souls-like titles. If you're looking for a decent challenge, then this is the one for you, but of course if you don't like Souls-like or hard games, then I definitely don't recommend it. I for one actually really enjoyed my time with Wuchang, and I'll always heavily recommend it as one of the best games of 2025. Few games this year ever felt as strange and intriguing as Blueprints, and it's why it was actually listed as a potential Game of the Year winner. The entire experience takes place inside a vast mansion that constantly shifts and reconfigures itself around you as you try to explore and find that elusive Room 46. One run might present a library stacked to the ceiling with secrets, the next a staircase that leads somewhere entirely different. Why it's so bloody mind-boggling. It's all sort of equal parts puzzle game and surreal adventure, and is all wrapped up in a dreamlike atmosphere that keeps you second-guessing everything they see. The fact this one came from a single and solo indie developer is absolutely insane, and Raw Fury did an excellent job of publishing this game as it's one of the best out there. This is one for all of you sort of mystery and exploration lovers, but like that sort of roguelike unpredictability to it, and it's one of the most inventive indies that I've probably ever played. It's one that you need to put on your radar if you haven't done so already. Do stick with it as well, as it does start out a little bit slow, but it really ramps up with some very unique moments. Before we dive into the remainder of the best Xbox Game Pass games for this year, please do consider subscribing down below if you're enjoying today's video. At the moment, over 66% of you are not subscribed to one of the fastest growing Xbox channels here on YouTube, and we are so close now to 80,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. I want to give a massive shout out as well to our channel members for your support lately, and thanks all so much for the support this year. Now with that, let's dive into the remaining games that you need to play on Xbox Game Pass as of 2025. Monster Train 2 was another shadow drop onto Xbox Game Pass a bit earlier this year, and so far it did review incredibly well across the board, and it was incredibly well received by the community. And if you're someone who likes roguelike deck builders, then this should easily be at the top of your priority list. The game really did build on the fast-paced and strategic combat of the original game, and it added some brand new factions, deeper deck mechanics, and even more replayability, which I didn't even think was even possible, to be honest. In the first game, players fought to rekindle the fires of hell while battling against the forces of heaven, but now Monster Train 2 was actually expanding on that world with new enemies, environments, and gameplay twists. It also included a lot more of the different card synergies alongside unlockable characters, and every playthrough still feels incredibly fresh and something like we'd never experienced before. I do still recommend you dive into the first game if you haven't had a chance to play it, as it's still available on Game Pass, but if you want to play the second entry, it's another big hit and definitely worth your playtime. One game I absolutely love reviewing when it came to Xbox Game Preview earlier this year was 33 Immortals. This one was a co-op action roguelike that brought us something truly unique to the table. This game is all about its massive scale multiplayer action in the best way possible, as essentially 33 players take on relentless waves of enemies and towering bosses together. It's kind of like a massive MMO raid, but then streamlined into a more accessible and fast-paced experience. If you've ever wanted to experience the exhilarating all-in battle feeling but without the usual MMO grind, then 33 Immortals is the perfect fix for you. The game actually marked Thunder Lotus's first venture into multiplayer, and from what I've played and from what I'm hearing from players, they absolutely nailed it. It's also received a massive update recently with a ton of new content as well, so it's definitely worth diving into if you get a chance, and also if you want to check out my review, do feel free to do so. Metaphor ReFantazio was one of 2024's best games, and it did just miss out on a Game of the Year shout last year, and surprisingly enough, it's now on Xbox Game Pass. The storytelling in this one, if you haven't played it before, is very sharp, the pacing is incredibly tight, and the game just oozes so much style, and I didn't really expect anything else from Atlas. It's not just about the looks though, which makes this one incredible, as also Metaphor introduces what they call a fantastic job system, and that's equal parts addictive and incredibly rewarding, kind of letting you customize your party in ways that feel impactful and fun. I'd say this game is not only for fans of Persona or SMT, but for anyone who loves a sort of deep character-driven RPG. It's already been called one of the best RPGs that Atlas has put out in many years, and that's for a very, very good reason. I was still quite surprised to see this one come to Xbox Game Pass so early in 2025, but even then, it's still worth experiencing towards the end of this year. Now, this game is my favourite indie of 2025, and I do see the comments of time to time saying that I'm always mentioning it, but it's for very good reason, and that's for the wonderful Lonely Mountain Snow Riders. This game has such an incredibly addictive gameplay loop, so much so that I really couldn't put it down until I got the full 1000 gamer score, and I even went back in recently to mop up those brand new achievements. If you're unfamiliar with this one, you are being sent down the twisting and winding slopes of different mountains, and your goal is not only to get down there in one piece, but also get there as quickly as possible. There is a single player mode which gives you stuff like challenges alongside a leaderboard, but then there's also a great multiplayer element which has you competing against 8 other riders to see who can get to the bottom first. It's very addictive, it looks great, and I highly recommend this indie compared to every other one on this list today. Keeping within that indie scene though, and another absolute gem which came out not too long ago is called Nine Souls. This was a striking indie action platformer from Red Candle Games that blends Sekiro-style parrying with deep lore, and also a stunning 2D cyberpunk world inspired by Taoist mythology. Think of it like the excellent Hollow Knight, but just set in a brand new setting. In this one, you play as a vengeful warrior awakened in a futuristic empire that's ruled by godlike beings known as the Souls, and you're on a quest to overthrow them and uncover the truth of your own past. Combat, as you kind of expect from these Metroidvanias, is very tight, fast, and focused on perfect timing, as per any Souls-like inspired action game. The hand-drawn art style is jaw-dropping with intricately designed characters, and I do actually prefer it to Hollow Knight, and I know some people might actually kind of take a gasp at that. If you're into Souls-like or 2D action games though with depth, then Nine Souls delivers that on every single front. I've already gushed about 11-bit studios in today's video, but I might as well talk about another one of their most recent releases on consoles that I've also had the pleasure of reviewing. Frostpunk 2 finally landed on our consoles in September after being on PC for quite some time, and if you're a strategy nut just like me, then this is easily one of the best strategy games available on Xbox consoles, let alone Xbox Game Pass. If you're unfamiliar, this one thrusts you into a world which has been overtaken by a brutal ice age, and it's your job as the new steward to guide your people through this harsh land and rebuild New London. The game has a very deep and really shocking moment within the choices that you have to make, and is easily why so many people love Frostpunk to this day. I actually never played the first entry, but now I'm absolutely hooked upon playing Frostpunk 2, and it easily sits in my top 10 games of this year so far. Performance on Xbox is still a little spotty here and there, although it has seen some updates recently, but if you want to check out my review for it, you can do with the links below. As a shadow drop onto Xbox Game Pass a couple months ago now, I just had to mention Pacific Drive, as I'm absolutely loving my time with this game. This one isn't just a horror game in the traditional sense though, as there's very little in the way of scares, which is just great for me as someone who hates that sort of thing, but similar to games like Little Nightmares, so it instead emphasizes a sort of dreadful and eerie atmosphere instead. This one is a roguelike though, which I really wasn't expecting, and you basically have to do anything possible to keep your car maintained as you explore that Olympic exclusion zone. Don't take just my word for it though, as the game has been received so well by many incredible reviews over the past couple of years, and that's pretty much on every single platform. If this one hasn't been on your radar, or you just somehow missed that shadow drop, please put it firmly on your must play list for this holiday season. You may have heard me talking about Banishers Ghost of New Eden quite a few times here on the channel before, but that's simply due to the game being such an underrated title that deserves way more attention and praise than it ever received. It puts you in the shoes of two protagonists called Redden and Tater as they try to help the world of New Eden and get rid of ghosts or spirits that have infested the land. The world is absolutely gorgeous visually, the combat is decent and reminds me a lot of games like God of War, and honestly the largest aspect that really did surprise me were most of the dialogue options. Your choices in this one really do matter, and you have to choose whether to banish spirits, save them, or destroy them completely, and it does get very dark in terms of its tone and also the stuff that has occurred. Please, please, please do not sleep on this one, as Don't Nod really made an absolute banger. Routine feels less like playing a game and more like being dropped into a carefully directed sci-fi horror film where nothing is explained outright. In this one, you'll be exploring a decaying lunar base with no HUD, no quest markers, and no safety net. It's just your suit, your CAT, and whatever you can piece together from terminals and notes. That hands-off design really did drive the immersion, especially with the tactical interactions, that being swapping tool modules, pressing physical buttons, and just navigating systems in a way that recalls Doom 3's grounded tech. The tension really ramps up harder though in the second half of the game, where atmosphere and enemy design do the heavy lifting rather than the cheap shocks. For me, the true highlight was the audio design, as it constantly keeps you alert, and while the story does stay mysterious, it's very compelling. It's really excellent, to be honest, just painfully short though at 5 to 7 hours, but it was certainly worth that 13-year wait. You might already know my opinion now about Gears of War Reloaded, and that's simply because it's one game that I'm still pretty annoyed by. That was simply because I was kind of hoping for a Gears 2 or 3 remaster or even a remake, but instead they decided to bring us yet another version of this first entry, and I'm just so blimmin' bored of it now. Even so, the visual fidelity of this one was pretty fantastic, and they really did a great job of bringing it up to modern day visual standards. The main highlight I can see time and time again though was just how well the multiplayer did fare, and a lot of people were actually really enjoying the full lobbies and maps of the original ones again. I have put a few hours into it, and of course I have completed it, and it's just classic Gears and really takes me back to the good old days of the 360. I am still begging Microsoft at this point for a 2 and 3 remake, but for now this will just have to do and tide us over to Gears of War E-Day in 2026. Double Fine decided to provide us with a brand new IP this year called Keeper, and oh boy, they really hit it out of the park with this one. This actually came to us from the B team over at Double Fine, so not the main team with Tim Schafer, and it actually promises an emotional journey containing a sentient lighthouse, so yeah, it was pretty peculiar. What we received though was an absolutely gorgeous art project that is told with no dialogue, and it brought all the weirdness and shenanigans we kind of expect from Double Fines these days. It is really hard for me to explain the story though, but essentially it has you trying to reach the top of an island and help your bird friend named Twig get back home. Trust me though, this game is anything but simple, and it will really blow your mind in so many occasions. You can check out my full review here on the channel with no spoilers, but man, it's a cracking experience that I wish I could experience for the first time yet again. I know that Ball X Pit landed on the Xbox Game Pass in November, but it did sell rather well, with over 500,000 players now experiencing some absolute peak. This one was just absolutely phenomenal in every way, and the amount of time that I've personally sunk into this one is just quite a lot, to be honest. You essentially have to take on roguelike runs by shooting balls at enemies within these sorts of moving corridors. Within these, you get special items, fusions of special abilities and more, alongside some pretty great looking and intense boss fights every so often. It also includes a city building mechanic before you dive into each round, and that lets you build your housing to unlock new characters, farms, and stuff to basically generate more resources and so much more. It's so in depth and it's really hard to put down, and in my words, this is just a game that you just have to play. It's also good on the Xbox ROG Ally devices, so do make sure to play it if you have either one of those. There's no doubt in my mind that Obsidian's 2025 RPG known as Avowed belongs on this list. I know many of you may dismay, but I really bloody love my time with this one. It's a company that never seems to miss the mark with its releases, and this was another one that was great to see in 2025. For me, Avowed looked like a great hit from the first time I laid eyes on it back in 2020, but obviously my doubt did creep in from time to time, as I kind of questioned whether it would end up failing to match the lofty expectations of something like Skyrim. It may not be Skyrim, but that's perfectly okay. I've seen tons of comparisons to this game already over the year, and although many do try to compare it with Skyrim, not even the developers mentioned that it was going to even be remotely like Skyrim on its scale or even in its comparisons. Nonetheless, this is still an amazing action RPG that I had a blast with, and I am still playing this game to this day, as I just love exploring their world. I even went for the full 1000 gamer score myself, as I really loved my time within the very unique and beautiful world of Eora. I will say though, the story might not be that spectacular, and I understand the complaints, but the action is definitely there, and there's so much good gameplay to enjoy within this awesome Xbox exclusive. The Xbox Retro Classics Collection is not a singular game, but I just had to include it in this list today as it was such a fantastic addition to Xbox Game Pass as a whole. If you do remember, this was introduced as a new feature for Xbox Game Pass subscribers, which essentially allowed us to play over 50 old games from Activision with many more to come in due time. It was made in collaboration with Antstream Arcade, and it took the form of a streaming-based feature that allows you to play these games over the cloud, complete with unique challenges, leaderboards, and more. There have been so many games added, of course, over the course of this year, and we even had another 4 just added this December. There are so many huge retro games here and some classics of that, and there's even some brilliant Activision and Xbox classics that you need to try. This collection is honestly phenomenal for what it packages in here, and I do highly recommend it if you want to dive into a bit of nostalgia. So what has been your favourite Xbox Game Pass game of 2025? We had over 200 games added in 2025 alone, which is absolutely insane to think, and we should have even more into 2026. Do make sure as well to like this video if you did enjoy it, and make sure to subscribe for more Xbox Game Pass content coming within the next year. Whilst here though, and if you want to check out some more awesome Xbox content here on the channel, why don't you check out the video on screen now? I actually covered the huge Xbox countdown sale going on in the store now, and I've highlighted 15 games that you can grab for under $5 this week.